Good morning, folks. Good afternoon, good evening for wherever you are. My name is Noel Charat. I run services and product line management for the orchestration product at DCS. As Ken put through and some of the examples that Jennifer showed, I think they are all very much in line with what I'm going to talk about and how it can be applied to enable some of those value-added services. So today, my focus is to talk about network slicing. Network slicing is somewhat new to the market in the last 3 to 4 years. It has taken shape in various domains, specifically started off in the 5G mobile domain, but it has been since spreading across different domains for use case as a use case application. So what is network slicing? Network slicing is basically a way to logically divide your physical and virtual components of your network and have the capability to divide those components to provide a service to a specific domain use case or end customer that guarantees certain bandwidth, low latency, or any kind of those specific network characteristics, right? So slicing kind of enables you to provide a specific way or a way to transport your traffic separated or segregated from other traffic for a specific use case. And Jennifer's presentation, she talked about a lot of those value-added services. Most of those services are good candidates to use slicing so that they have their own dedicated quality of service and user experience at the end of the day. So a slice is basically a logical separation of resources that are either virtual or physical. When I say virtual, there may be applications in the cloud that could be, whether it could be a firewall or a VPN or a specific application used for end-home network service. Those applications could again be separated and dedicated for a given use case. Similarly to a physical resource, whether it's a fixed, wireless access service or a OLT device that provides fiber to the home services, they can all be separated, segregated into a slice to come together to provide a service at the end of the day. And if you look at how is this enabled, how is slicing enabled, typically there is an automation solution or an orchestrator in this case that allows you to, provision your virtual physical resources that are logically abstracted in such a way that they are reserved for their capabilities as part of a network service that is dedicated for a given use case. So an orchestrator works behind the scenes to provision your virtual and physical components so that your traffic gets separated or segregated in such a way that they all flow from A through Z, whether you are a home consumer or a private enterprise customer. That whole network is provisioned such a way that the traffic flows all the way separated out for that particular use case. So in order to make this happen in a easier way for an operator or for an admin user who is provisioning these slices, the industry, especially Etsy and other TM Forum and other organizations have come up with models. And these models can abstract out these characteristics of the use case for the slice so that it makes it easy for a customer to order a given service at a high level. And those service comes in as if it's an intent-based service, which the models will then understand, identify, and be able to translate that into appropriate provisioning components for a given resource so that it can be provisioned all the way across. And next slide, we'll talk about the models in a little bit more in detail. But slicing is applicable, as I mentioned earlier, it started off in the 5G mobile domain world, but it's now applicable across many different domains, including access and residential domains. And to give a good example of the picture on the right side here, you may have different use cases or different type of end consumers for a given service. Some of the services that you see on the left side that says slice 1, 2, 3 are some of the value use cases that Jennifer mentioned. They all can have their own specific slice dedicated to them so that their user experience or the users using those services, their experience is very well maintained when compared to any other generic internet application experiences. Okay, so in order to enable slicing or a slice for a given use case, um, the standard bodies have defined specific models that um, allow you to capture what is the purpose of a given slice and what's the purpose of the service that you're trying to turn on into different models. Models are nothing but templates that are generic templates that have specific attributes identifying for a specific function. So there are three different type of templates or models used in the world of slicing. There is a nest template, which really captures characteristics for a given type of slice service, like EMBB or MIOT, etc. So it would have attributes that captures, characteristics specific to that particular use case. Then there is a customer-facing service or CFS. This template or model captures what the customer is actually asking for in terms of whether they want a high-speed internet service or what type of bandwidth they want, etc. At a high level. And then you have a resource-facing model, which captures what kind of resources are available in your network that can then be mapped to a given service request from a customer. And orchestration, as I mentioned before, is one of those automation tools that are used in the world of slicing to enable a slice end-to-end. And there are different standard functions defined in automation orchestration solution, which would do a specific portion of this provisioning across the whole end-to-end slice function. So as an example, on the right side, there's a small picture. Um, the the uh, the top part kind of shows what is an example of a request or an order. In this case, you will see there's a customer called BMW located at Boston. They have a specific service that they're looking for entertainment with a service level of gold and 500 megabits of guaranteed bandwidth. So in order to go from there, that request, to enabling a slice that will provision the virtual and the physical components all the way to their end network, is the translation that's done through using an orchestrator using these models, right? So the models help in translating what is the intent-based request into what needs to trigger the physical layer, the virtual layer, to be able to provide that particular service. So if I dissect that further down, you will see on the left side, there is a service creation activity. This is where a customer order might come through for a slice. That service creation activity will in turn select a specific type of nest template, which defines the type of service that particular user is expecting or getting provisioned, which will then in turn select a CFS. And based on the nest and the CFS template attributes, a specific resource-facing template will be identified, because that will dictate, the CFS in the nest will dictate a type of service and also dictate what is required to deploy where. And that in turn selects a resource-facing template that has all the information needed to identify which virtual and physical resources are to be selected to apply and create a service and provision that service for that end-to-end service. So all of this automation is done behind the scenes by an orchestrator or an automated solution, whereas what you see from a customer portal standpoint, it would be a way to create a service. But the service then gets translated into a slice. That slice then gets translated into specific provisioning activities. It's all automated, behind the scenes. Now, if we take that further down into a fiber to the home or access residential use case, there are additional standards that's been formed and technologies being talked about on how to enable slicing in this particular domain. So I'll briefly talk about it. So FANS or fixed access network sharing is very similar concept of enabling slicing all the way to a residential access use case. It is a way to physically, virtualize or abstract out your existing physical components that is providing your fiber to the home service, and then be able to provision them such that they can be shared across multiple different uh, virtual network operators or VNOs. So size separation of resources, there are different ways to do it. Um, and every vendor may support different functionality. But typically it starts off with the capability of doing outer VLAN tags that will differentiate the overall traffic patterns. Then you go one step below where you are able to dedicate a given PON port to one dedicated ISP. So every traffic for that ISP can be sliced on that one phone port. Then you go further down again where you can bring in an orchestrator to further divide an entire OLT device to act as a multi-tenancy solution where it can, regardless of a port or VLAN tag, it is able to uh, um, enable multiple tenants on a single hardware that provides the fiber to the home service. And lastly, that differentiation can go all the way to the ONT or the CPE device at a user's home. So these are all different ways of enabling traffic segregation, sharing the physical resources, and still being able to provide a better user experience for a given use case, to a end access or residential customer, right? So who does this all benefit? So if you look at when you enable slicing, especially in the access residential area or domain, large wholesale providers benefit a lot. Why? Because they provide services for different VNOs, right? They provide the hardware solution for different VNOs to be able to enable fiber to the home service, for example. IBC in Israel is a good example of such a wholesale provider. But these are actual vendors that provide solutions to other VNOs, which then works with the end customer to be able to do a last mile fiber to the home service. In this case, they enable slicing on these physical devices to be able to share the OLT devices across multiple end customers. Right? The VNOs or ISPs are another beneficiary because they get a service or a slice at a much lower level of investment. Instead of building up the entire set of hardware equipment needed to provide a service to the end consumers at home, they are able to, pay specifically for a given slice or a shared piece of the hardware instead of spending upfront investment to get the service going. End customers are also beneficiary of this because they end up getting optimized cost on their billing. What used to be $100 per month service, many years ago has come down to $50 and comes down to $25 per month. That cost savings is happening because the wholesale products are able to cut down, or the VNS are able to cut down their initial investment cost based on this kind of slice capabilities, right? So this particular functionality, slicing, is enabled both in fixed broadband access as well as fixed mobile broadband solutions as well. So as I mentioned earlier, slicing, even though it started off in the 5G mobile domain, it has kind of taken off in all the other domains where they are able to use the same concept to be able to differentiate, their existing physical or virtual applications or devices, and then be able to share them across multiple use cases in multiple domains. So that's a I would say very high level slice 101 intro today. There is a Q&A session coming up later, and you're all welcome to ask any questions, and I'll provide my answers as best as I can.